Flesh, like dawn, handle squirms under my hand, covered in crawling symbols that leave a faint, greasy residue. It pulses like a slow heartbeat against my palm, cold and wrong. I kick the kitchen door open, the wood splintering inward with a sickening foot crack that echoes too long in the dead air. Knives vibrate in the sink. Shink, shink, the neon green handles gleaming under the toxic waste yellow glow of the single bulb. I drop my key. Clatter, into a puddle of drying blood, the metallic scent sharp enough to taste. The shadow lunges from the corner, a shapeless thing of deeper black, and I spin, my shoulder hitting the counter with a thuther that sends a rusted needle clattering onto the floor. The Geiger counter crashes to the tiles, clicking 20 times per second, the sound sharp as broken glass in my ears. Wet breath slams against my neck, hot and rancid, smelling of bile and old meat. I freeze, the air thick with the ozone tang of the vibrating knives. The cat sits by its bowl, a small, sleek shape against the grimy tiles. It drinks blood from its bowl, a slow, deliberate foother drip, drip, drip death that syncs with the Geiger counter's frantic rhythm. Its tail made of rusted, barbed wire flicks out, sharp edges catching the toxic yellow light as it scrapes against my cuff. Sharp cold, like ice shards. Orling digs in, cold and tight, pulling like a noose made of spider silk. Black pit eyes fix on me from the cat's head, unblinking, ancient. My thoughts are wrong. I'm not supposed to be here. The clicking isn't from the Geiger counter. It's inside my skull, 20 times per second, a hammering against the soft tissue behind my eyes. I feel the string pull harder, a physical yank at my ankle. The blood on the floor is cold now, thick as tar. The Geiger counter's clicks merge with my heartbeat. 10, 10, each pulse a hammer blow. I can't move. My legs are rooted in the drying blood. The cat finishes drinking. It stares at me, its barbed wire tail curling slowly, deliberately. I feel the string pull. Hard. 10, 10, 10. The needle on the counter rusty. Never leaving a wound gleams under the toxic yellow light. I should run. I can't. The blood's cold. The clicking is my heartbeat. Foot and 10. 10, 10, the shadows in the corner deepen, coalescing into a shape that isn't there. The Geiger counter clicks 10 times per second, the sound vibrating up through the floorboards into my bones. The string on my wrist tightens, pulling me toward the sink, toward the knives. Through shink, shink, shink. The cat's eyes never waver. The clicking is inside my skull. 10, 10, 10. I feel the needle's presence on the counter. A cold weight. The blood's cold. The clicking is my heartbeat. Thuffen 10, 10. The blade's weight is wrong. Too heavy for its size. Its neon green handle slick with something that isn't grease. My fingers slip as I yank it free from the sink. The metal's edge dragging against the ceramic with a funshink that rings like a struck tuning fork. The vibration hums up my arm, a low electric pulse that settles in my teeth. The cat's tail lashes out before I can turn. Rusted barbs catching the toxic yellow light like scattered knives. I don't think, just swing. The blade bites deep into the wire. A sound like tearing parchment, a wet chutnit that makes my stomach lurch. Black bile drips from its jaws in thick ropes, hissing as it hits the tiles. The scent of it rotten copper and burnt sugar filling my throat. The strings on my wrists jerk, not pull, not tug. Yank, like someone's wrenching my bones through muscle. I stumble backward, the blade still in my grip, and the cat's head snaps up. Its eyes are pits, bottomless and wrong, reflecting nothing. The Geiger counter's clicks have sped up, 15 times per second, a metronome of doom. My pulse can't keep up. The strings dig in deeper, rusted nails dragging across my skin, leaving thin red grooves that don't bleed. The alley is a maw of shadows. The walls lined with taxidermy, stretched hides nailed to rusted beams, their glass eyes milky with dust. A hand twitches, not moves, twitches. A fossilized thing, fingers curled like claws, skin stretched too tight over bone. The air smells of ozone and wet fur, the stink of old blood clinging to the cybernetic grime. I kick the hand away. Crack! And bone dust explodes in a cloud, settling slow as snow. The strings on my ankles tighten, pulling me toward the wall. I can't breathe. The cat is drinking again, this time from a puddle of bile that glows faintly under the toxic light, like a second sun. Drip, drip, drip. The sound syncs with the Geiger counter, a slow, deliberate rhythm. Wake up! The voice isn't in my head, it's behind me. I spin, the blade still in my hand, and there's nothing. Just the alley, just the shadows. The strings pull harder, my legs won't move. The taxidermy arm reaches for my throat, fingers stretching like taffy, skin splitting at the seams. I scream, but the sound is swallowed by the furden click-click, click of the Geiger counter, the schnit of the cat's tail, the wet furdish clop of bile hitting the tiles, the arm's fingers close around my ankle, not grip, close or like a mouth. The blade is still in my hand. The cat watches. The strings pull, 15 clicks, 15 times, 15 seconds to live. I sprint. Neon green streetlights casting long shadows that seem to bite into my skin like frostbite. Each step echoes, a thudet, a pause, another tufi, like the world is counting down with me. The Geiger counter in my hand stutters, clicks unevenly now. 11, 12, 13, Fahal, 13, Fad, my breath hitches in syncopation. A man stands at an intersection ahead, face obscured by shadows that seem too thick for this toxic, wasty yellow world. He points as I approach, a jerk of his arm, and then he is gone, vanished into the neon glow like a snuffed candle flame. His voice lingers, though. Fuik, wake up! My radio hits the ground with a clack that echoes through the empty streets. The cat's tail, rusted barbs glinting under the harsh lights, swings in my peripheral vision, pointing me toward a sign swaying gently on its creaking chain. Salvation. The letters are chipped and faded, like old bones bleached by sun. Fossilized remains crunch beneath my boots as I cross the street, each footfall sending up clouds of dust that catch in my throat. It tastes like copper, metallic and bitter. The taxidermy collection from earlier shuffles into view, a grotesque parade from a doorway too dark to see into. Stitched eyes glint like wet glass under the neon lights, reflecting nothing but shadows. I feel it then, the strings on my wrists tightening, pulling me toward them. Click, click, click. The Geiger counter's rhythm speeds up again, when 16 times per second, 17, 18 times. My pulse can't keep pace. I'm breathing too fast now, breaths coming in short gasps that fog the air like smoke signals. The man's voice whispers behind my neck, a breath of cold wind against my skin. You're dead. I spin around, but there is nothing. Just empty street and neon lights casting those biting shadows. The cat watches me from its bowl, licking blood-red fluid off its barbed tail. It purrs, the sound like metal grinding on rust, and I realize it is not milk in that bowl. The strings yank harder now. 21 clicks, 22. They're pulling at my ankles too, tugging me toward the doorway where the taxidermy creatures wait, fingers stretched out like welcoming arms, or maybe their claws. The air grows colder still. The toxic yellow light seems to dim, and I can't feel my fingertips anymore. I try to scream, but all that comes out is a fusa, like steam escaping from boiling water. It doesn't matter anyway. The sound gets swallowed up by the rhythmic clicking of the Geiger counter. 23, 24. The cat watches, tail swishing gently back and forth across its bowl. The strings pull harder still. 25 clicks now, a metronome counting down to my end. I can see it clearly, the taxidermy creatures reaching for me with their fossilized fingers, the cat watching from its blood-red bowl, and somehow that is what terrifies me most, knowing exactly how this ends. 26. The strings yank hard one last time before snapping taut, tensing like guitar strings ready to snap, and then everything goes dark. I squat down, the neon green light casting harsh shadows on my hands as they hover over a fossilized bone jutting from the dusty ground like some ancient grave marker. It is embedded with something, a rusted needle perhaps. The Geiger counter ticks softly in my hand, 13 clicks to 14 time gain. I reach out, fingers brushing against cold metal. The needle doesn't budge at first. It seems to be wedged tight, a prisoner of time and decay, but then ever so slightly it moves the tiniest fraction of an inch. That is all it takes for the sound to echo through me. A snick! A sharp intake of breath behind my neck, cold as ice on my skin. My teeth gritted against the metallic rasp of rust, grinding against itself. The bone shifts slightly, dust sifting down like tiny grains of sand in an hourglass, counting down to eternity. 15 clicks now. 16. My pulse races to keep pace. The cat watches me from its bowl, barbed tail swishing gently back and forth across the blood-red fluid within. It purrs, the sound like metal grinding on rust, and I realize it is not milk in that bowl after all. 17 clicks, 18. The needle gives suddenly, popping out of its fossilized socket with a wet twin plop. In my hand, it looks like any other old needle, a relic from some forgotten time when such things were commonplace. But there is something about this one. It never leaves a wound. That is what the man said. The taxidermy creatures in the alley twitch as if agreeing. 19 clicks, 20. I stand up slowly, feeling it then. The strings on my wrists tightening ever so slightly. They're pulling at my ankles too now, tugging me toward them, a marionette being controlled by unseen hands. Or perhaps not so unseen. The cat's eyes seem to glow brighter in the dim light as if encouraging this dance of death. I look down at myself, at these strings that bind me, and notice something else. They're growing darker now. Their once transparent threads turning black like ink stains on skin. 21 clicks, the metronome counting down my heartbeat. But I can't feel it anymore beneath the rhythmic thrumming in my ears. The cat presses its barbed tail against my calf. A sharp, sudden pain that breaks through the fog of panic clouding my mind. It is enough to make me look up, to see what lies ahead, and when I do, I realize where these strings are leading me, toward a doorframe that seems too dark even for this toxic waste yellow world. 22 clicks. The cat drinks from its bowl again. 23. The strings pull harder now. They're not just tugging at my wrists and ankles anymore. They've wrapped themselves around my arms, my legs, my waist, a corset of shadows tightening like a noose. I can barely move against their constricting grip. But I have to try, have to fight back somehow or else. 24 clicks, the cat's eyes meet mine across the distance, and then everything goes dark as those strings pull me into the blackness beyond that doorway, and all I can hear is my own breathing echoing behind my neck like a whispered promise of what is waiting for me there in the endless night. Martha vanishes into the doorway, swallowed whole by shadows. The Geiger counter ticks one last time, 25 clicks, and then falls silent as if marking her final heartbeat before everything goes quiet except for that breathing behind my neck, cold and relentless in its rhythm. Inhale, exhale. I open my eyes to the kitchen again. Not a waking, but a fortress, opening the knives, a row of them, strapped to a magnetic strip above the chipped formica, vibrate with a high-pitched whine. Shink, 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 not a clean sound, not a ringing. More like the teeth of something grinding together, insistent and brittle. I kick at the warped linoleum near the stove. A clatter, a futile gesture, a reflex. It doesn't change anything. The same grime. The same peeling paint, the same sickly, toxic waste yellow staining the walls. The cat, it's there, of course, always there. Perched on the edge of the sink, its barbed wire tail twitching, its lapping at the bowl, a slow, deliberate rhythm. Not milk, never milk. The liquid is too viscous, too dark. A slick, crimson sheen coats its whiskers. Bile and something else, something thicker, heavier. I can't bring myself to look too closely. The metal of the bowl seems to absorb the light, leaving the liquid within a hollow blackness. A man. He was there before, wasn't he? Standing in the doorway just beyond the threshold of the sickly light. He points a finger, skeletal and pale, at my face. Wake up. The words aren't spoken. Not exactly. They're pressed against my skull, a cold pressure behind my eyes. He's gone now, vanished, as if he were a trick of the light, or a trick of the mi light. I drop the rusted needle. It clatters against the floor, rolling to a stop near the baseboard. A hollow squelch as it hits something damp. The Geiger counter, still clutched in my hand, resets. The numbers flicker, then stabilize, back to 0, but the feeling remains. That prickling sensation on my skin, the static cling of dread. I feel them then. Thin, almost invisible, digging into the flesh of my wrists. A pressure, like tiny sutures being tightened. Click. The counter. Click. Click. Another click. Another click. Each one a hammer blow against the fragile scaffolding of my sanity. They're not just on my wrists anymore. They've begun to bind my ankles, wrapping around my calves, my thighs. The cat's barbed tail brushes my leg. A sharp, stinging pain, but not unpleasant. It's a distraction, enough to make me look down to see the needle. It's embedded in my palm, not a clean puncture, not a neat wound. It's just there, the metal fused with my skin, the rust blooming outwards like a dark flower. It doesn't hurt. There's no blood, just the cold, unyielding metal. I'm back. I'm always back. This kitchen, the vibrating knives, the blood-lapping cat, the phantom man, a loop, a broken record stuck on the same agonizing groove. The cat licks its bowl again. Drip, drip, a slow, deliberate cadence. each drop a miniature echo of the inevitable. The man, I realize, isn't a hallucination. He is a marker, a signpost, a reminder of what I've forgotten, or what I'm supposed to forget, the taxidermy. I hadn't noticed them before, or perhaps I had, but my mind refused to register it. A collection of stuffed animals arranged along the walls, a fox, a raccoon, a deer. Their glass eyes stare at me, unblinking, and they're moving, a subtle shifting of the head, a twitch of the ear. They're not still. They're assembling. The strings pull harder now. Not just constricting, but guiding. They're not simply binding my limbs, they're directing my movements. My arms lift, my legs bend. I'm being steered, inexorably towards something. A doorway, a black rectangle carved into the wall, darker than the shadows. A void, 24 clicks. The cat's gaze meets mine. Not a friendly look, not a curious glance. It's a knowing stare, a predatory gleam. It's not watching food with me. It's watching Fudya to me, waiting, the strings tighten, constricting my chest. I can't breathe, or maybe I can, but the air is too thin, too cold. The knives vibrate faster, the sound escalating into a frantic whine. The taxidermy collection shuffles closer, their stuffed bodies scraping against the floor, the sound like brittle bones grinding together. I try to resist, to pull against the strings, but it's useless. They're too strong, too numerous. They've wrapped around my waist, my torso, my throat. A corset of shadows, tightening, suffocating. I wake up. The voice is louder now, not behind my neck, but towards inside at my head, a cold, insistent demand. The doorway looms. The blackness within seems to breathe, to pulse. The strings pull, harder, and then everything dissolves. I'm falling, tumbling into the darkness. A final desperate gasp for air. The Geiger counter clicks one last time. A hollow, desolate sound. And then silence, a vast, infinite silence, except for the breathing. Behind my neck. Cold and relentless. Inhale, exhale. The needle in my palm is a living thing now. Its rusted tip pulsing like a vein. A slow throb, throb, throb. Throb that syncs with the Geiger counter's frantic clicks. The taxidermy collection is ahead, their stiff limbs shuffling in unison, the sound of brittle joints cracking like dry twigs underfoot. I don't remember stepping forward, but my feet obey, dragging me through the slums. This wasteland of corrugated metal and blackened timber, where the air tastes of burnt copper and something older, something like the inside of a dry well. The cat is there again, its barbed tail dragging through the dust, each wire bristle leaving a trail of rust like tiny jagged scars. It doesn't walk beside me, it doesn't lead. Sen. The strings on my wrists tighten, twisting like fishing line through a wound, and I wrench at them, but they don't tear. They only dig deeper, biting into the sinew beneath my skin. The Geiger counter's clicks speed up, a staccato rhythm, and I realize it's not just counting radiation anymore. It's counting Twen counting my breaths, my twitches, the way my fingers flex around the needle's hilt. The bile in the cat's bowl is thicker now, a syrupy black that clings to its whiskers like tar. It doesn't drink in gulps. It sips, slow and deliberate. The sound a wet thistlup. Slup the teeth end wick. Sluppy that echoes in my teeth. I can taste it, not in my mouth, but in my chest, a bitter reflux that burns the back of my throat. The taxidermy collection turns as one, their glass eyes locking onto me, and I see the way their heads tilt, not just a shift of the neck, but a shivery arrangement, the stitching along their jaws unraveling just enough to let their tongues flick out, long and split like serpents. Not to lick, to taste. A crack splits the ground beneath me, and I stumble into the fissure, my boot sinking into something soft, fossilized, sun-bleached bone. The strings pull harder, and I cry out, but the sound is swallowed by the hissing of the bile, by the scrape, scrape, scrape of the taxidermy's claws against the earth. They're not walking anymore. They're to crawling. Their stuffed bodies unfolding like broken puppets, their limbs spreading wide to brace against the ground. The fox's muzzle peels back in a grin too wide for its face, and I see the teeth inside needle-thin, glinting in the toxic neon glow. The raccoon's fingers twitch, the stuffing spilling from its seams in damp clumps, and then click, click, click. The Geiger counter is screaming now, a frantic, high-pitched shriek that grinds against my eardrums. The strings coil around my throat, not to choke, but to fuddy direct, and I'm forced to my knees as the collection closes in. Their fingers, oh God, their fingers are no longer stuffed with cotton. They're filled with something darker, something that glistens when they flex. The cat's tail flicks, and the barbs drag across my calf, a hot lance of pain that makes me gasp. The needle in my palm reverberates her, and I look down just as the cat's head dips, its tongue a pink forked thing that lashes out like a whip. The rusted tip of the needle squelches into the flesh of my wrist, not piercing, not cutting, merging. The metal blooming into my skin like a black rose. The strings snap, not all at once. One by one, like guitar strings plucked in reverse, the tension unraveling with a wet, sooty pop, pop, pop. That makes my ears ring. The taxidermy freezes, their heads jerking up as if they've heard something. The cat's tail stiffens, the barbs locking into place like the quills of a porcupine. And then, a hand. Not mine. Not the cat's. A skeletal thing, fingers too long, too thin, wrapped in a sleeve of yellowed leather. It presses against the back of my neck, cold as a grave, and the world tilts it. The Geiger counter clicks one last time, slow and deliberate, and the voice, "Wake up," isn't in my head anymore. It's in the foofy head anymore. It's in the footy air, vibrating through the bones of my skull, shaking loose something deep, something that wasn't supposed to be there. The taxidermy's fingers close around my throat. Not gently, not carefully. They cruci. The stuffing inside their gloves squelching like rotted fruit, and I can feel the needle in my wrist twisting deeper, hotter, the rust burning through my veins like acid. The cat's eyes meet mine, and in that instant I understand it's not guiding me to suicide. It's guiding me to Sivey Remember. The last thing I see is the fox's grin, its jaws unhinging wider, wider, and then the darkness swallows me whole, and the strings don't just bind my limbs anymore. I replace them. The needle bites. Not a cut, never a clean slice, but a fussing key. A rusted tooth grinding into the hollow of my throat. My fingers twitch, but the strings holding them don't let me pull away. The kitchen counter is slick beneath my palms. The surface scored with grooves that catch the neon glow like a blade catching light. The air smells of burnt wiring and something older, something that clings to the back of my throat ozone, maybe, or the scent of a battery left too long in the dark. The radio scream scene. Not static. Not white noise. It's a living thing, its speakers buzzing like a swarm of trapped insects. The Geiger counters click, stitching themselves into the sound. Click, 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 50 times a second, a metronome counting down to something I don't understand. The needle slides deeper, and the pain isn't pain, it's pressure. A slow unraveling, like the first stitches of a wound coming undone. My pulse is a drum in my ears, but beneath it, something else, the wet sweet slurp, slurp. Slurpy of the cat drinking from its bowl. Not water, not milk. The bile is thick. Black as oil, and it glistens on its whiskers like tar. The cat leaps, not onto the counter, not onto my lap. It lands inside me, its claws. No, not claws. The barbs of its tail, twisting into the strings at my wrists. The fibers splintering like dry bone. The pain is sharp, but the strings don't break. They stretch, and the sensation is wrong, like my skin is being peeled back from my limbs, not all at once, but in slow, deliberate strips. The cat's eyes. Yellow, but not like a cat's. Like the glow of a dying bulb lock onto mine. It doesn't blink. It doesn't breathe. It putwaitsu. The radio's wail is joined now by something else. A breath. Not mine, not the cat's. It's behind me, close enough that I can feel the hot exhalation against the back of my neck. The rustle of fabric leather, maybe, or something stitched from old hide. The wake up. The strings pull, not gently. They yank, and my arms jerk upward. My shoulders popping like joints dislocating in reverse. The needle in my throat reverberates, and the pain is a white-hot wire searing through my veins, but it's not the pain that makes me gasp. It's the sauti. The radio isn't just screaming now. It's a laughing, a distorted, mechanical giggle that grinds against my teeth. The cat's tail flicks, the barbs dragging across my wrist, and the strings snap, not all at once, but one by one, like guitar strings plucked in reverse. Each treaty pop, sending a jolt through my nerves. I drop the needle. It squelches into the counter, the rusted tip embedding itself in the laminate, but it doesn't stay there. The metal blooms, spreading like ink in water, the rust eating into the surface, the counter melting beneath it, not with heat, but with time, with something older than decay. The cat's tongue flicks out, not to lick, to fully taste. It dips into the wound at my throat, and the blood comes slow at first, thick as syrup, but then into a gushessy, a wet gulp, gulp, gulp. That echoes in my skull. The taste is copper, but not like pennies. It's the taste of a coin left in the rain, the taste of a wound that never closes. The breathing moves closer, not behind me anymore, beside me. The air shifts, and I can feel it, the hot rush of exhalation against my ear, the sound of a mouth opening, of teeth scraping together. We wake up. The strings pull harder, not at my wrists, at my throat. The cat's tail is a whip now, the barbs dragging across my collarbone, and the pain is a red-hot brand. But the strings don't just bind, they forever place. I can feel my skin stretching, my muscles unraveling, the bones in my fingers frin-popping like kernels in a popcorn machine. The radio's scream is joined by a new sound. The crunch of stuffing, of cotton and straw, of something twin-rotting from the inside out. The taxidermy collection isn't just moving now. It's unraveling, the stitching along its jaws, splitting, the stuffing spilling out in damp clumps. The fingers, oh God, the fingers twisting, not to grab, but to fun-pull. The cat drinks my last breath. I can feel it in my chest. The lungs deflating, the last gasp of air sucked into its mouth. The wet thuslap of my own life being swallowed. The strings coil around my throat, not to choke, but to sue director, and I'm forced to my knees as the fingers close around my wrists. Not gently, not carefully. They crush, the stuffing inside their gloves squelching like overripe fruit, and I can feel the needle in my throat twisting deeper, hotter, the rust burning through my veins like acid. The radio goes silent, not suddenly, not with a foot click. It fades, the static unraveling like thread. The Geiger counters click slowing, each one a hammer blow against my ribs. The cat's eyes meet mine, and in that instant I understand. It's not guiding me to suicide, it's guiding me to remember. The last thing I see is the fox's grin. Its jaws unhinging wider, wider, and then the darkness swallows me whole, and the strings don't just bind my limbs anymore. They tear a place of them. The counter's edge is a blade, biting into my palms as I lean over the sink. It was once white, like teeth bared in a grin too wide to be genuine. Now it is chipped and yellowed, veins of rust running through its surface like dried blood. The mirror above reflects nothing but neon green static, the light flickering like a dying heart monitor. My doppelganger watches me from the shattered remnants of glass. Her eyes are black pits, her mouth twisted into something that could be laughter or tears. I can't tell which, because she is not real. None of this is real. It can't be. But there she stands, pointing at my throat where the rusted needle digs in like a hook. I reach up to pull it out, a squelched, wet and thick, and the pain explodes behind my eyes. The needle doesn't come free. Instead, it twists deeper, the metal grinding against bone. I can hear it, the click-click of teeth gnashing together beneath my skin. The doppelganger's finger taps against her wrist, where a string hangs loose, frayed ends whipping like snakes' tongues. My breath catches in my throat as mine does the same, snapping free from its mooring with an audible pop. The Geiger counter clicks louder now, faster the sound of a drum roll leading up to something terrible. The cat appears on the windowsill behind her, its eyes glowing toxic waste yellow against the neon green gloom. It stares at me unblinking before dipping its head and lapping from an unseen bowl. The bile is black as oil in the fluorescent light, glistening like tar on its whiskers. The doppelganger reaches out, her hand passing through glass to grasp my wrist. Her fingers are cold, clammy dead, but they hold me tight nonetheless. Strings dig into my flesh, binding me tighter than any noose could ever hope to do. I can feel them now, the ones attached to my ankles too, dragging me down like anchors. The cat lifts its head, bile dripping from its jaws onto the worn linoleum floor. It opens its mouth, a wet to gulping sound, and speaks in a voice that is not quite mine, but close enough for it to make my stomach turn. Wake up! I want to scream, need to, but all I can do is choke on the words, coughing them back down into the darkness where they belong. The needle twists again, grinding against bone until something gives way with a sickening foot to pay. Pain explodes through me like fireworks, blinding white and red behind my eyes. The doppelganger leans in close to close and breathes directly onto my neck. Her exhalation is hotter than any fever could ever be, burning away the chill that has settled into my bones over these endless days of neon green gloom. Wake up, she whispers again, her voice echoing inside me like thunder in a tin can. I feel something shift behind us. The taxidermy collection twitches, its glass eyes reflecting nothing but static, and then it starts to move. The strings pull tauter still as the fingers close around my wrists, crushing them with all the gentleness of grinding gears. I try to scream again, but all that comes out is a wet tea gurgle, bubbles popping at the corners of my mouth. The cat watches me from its perch on the windowsill, its tail twitching back and forth like a metronome counting down time itself. Its eyes are pools of yellow light, swirling with secrets older than dirt or stone or blood. I want to look away, to close my eyes against whatever horrors await, but I can't. Not when it is looking at me like that. Not when it knows something I don't. The doppelganger leans closer still until our foreheads touch and her breath is hot on my lips. Wake up, she says one last time, and then everything goes black. The ledge bites into my heels, a cold, unyielding pressure, like teeth clenched against the pain I've become accustomed to feeling. It is not high enough. Of course it isn't, but I'm teetering nonetheless, one foot already dangling over empty air while the other clings desperately onto solid ground. The cat pushes me from behind, not with its paws, but rather using that tail of rusted barbed wire, sharp as a blade and twice as cruel. It digs into my flesh, tearing through fabric and skin until I can feel the cold metal against bone. The impact sends me stumbling forward, arms pinwheeling wildly before finding purchase on nothing but air. I fall. The cat's voice follows me down, guttural and wet, the sound of bile being swallowed whole, and it echoes around us like thunder in a tin can. The rhythm is hypnotic, rhythmic clicking that drowns out the Geiger counter's silent warning. It fills my mouth now too, that thick liquid pooling on my tongue before sliding down my throat. The ledge drinks me whole. I hit the ground hard enough to knock the breath from my lungs. But there isn't time for pain, not when something else is happening here. The strings around my wrists and ankles tighten suddenly, pulling tauter than any noose could ever hope to do. They dig into my flesh until blood flows freely down my arms and legs like rain on a window pane. The taxidermy collection twitches behind me, their glass eyes reflecting nothing but static, and then they start moving again. This time, though, there is purpose in their jerky movements, fingers closing around my wrists with all the gentleness of grinding gears while claws scrape across the floor towards us like nails on a chalkboard. Click, click, click. The Geiger counter starts up once more, its rhythmic ticking filling the void left behind by the cat's silence, and I realize too late what that sound means. It isn't warning me about radiation anymore. Now it counts down time itself, each click bringing us closer to something terrible. I try to scream, but all that comes out is a wet gurgle, bubbles popping at the corners of my mouth as bile rises up from where it is pooled in my throat. The cat watches me from its perch on the windowsill, its tail twitching back and forth like a metronome counting down time itself, and I know then what that sound really is. It isn't just gulping, no. This creature drinks sorrow too. The taxidermy creatures reach us now, their fingers closing around my wrists with bruising force while claws scrape against the floor towards me. They're dragging something behind them, a length of rope maybe. Or perhaps it is another string, like those already bound tightly around my limbs. I can't tell because everything goes black before I have a chance to look closer. The cat speaks again, its voice echoing inside me like thunder in a tin can. Wake up! But there isn't anything left for me to wake up from, not when all that awaits is endless night. I hit the floor and the knives begin to shink, their metal teeth chewing the air as they vibrate against the linoleum. The kitchen lights are neon green, but the blood pooling on my neck makes them look like toxic waste yellow. The cat's tail, rusty barbed wire, jabs the needle I drop to Teventuelch as it sinks into my flesh. Click, 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 click. The Geiger counter's rhythm fills the room, 10 clicks per second, counting down the seconds I've already lived. I try to move my wrists, but the strings dig deeper, not pulling but sinking, like roots growing through my skin. They tighten as the taxidermy collection shuffles closer, their glass eyes reflecting nothing but the kitchen's sickly glow. For click, click, click. The knives vibrate harder. Shink, 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 their rhythm matching the Geiger's, a sickening duet. I feel the needle's barbed wire tail stabbing my neck, cold metal against my pulse point. Gulp, burn. The cat drinks the blood rising from the wound, a wet, guttural sound that drowns out the knife's vibration. Gulp, gulp, gulp. The cat's voice echoes inside my skull, not in my ears. Half wake up. I try to scream, but all that comes out is the furtive shink of the knives, their vibrations traveling up my arms, down my legs, into my bones. The strings around my wrists and ankles pull tauter, blood flowing freely now, not just pooling but running down my arms like liquid copper. The taxidermy figures reach me, their fingers closing around my wrists with all the gentle force of grinding gears, claws scraping the floor like nails on a chalkboard. Click, 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 click. The Geiger counter's clicks crowd the space, 10 per second, a countdown written in blood. I can't tell if I'm falling or if the strings are pulling me up. The cat watches from the windowsill, its tail twitching like a metronome. Click, 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 click. I try to whisper, why can't I stop? But the words catch in my throat, thick and coppery. Gulp! The cat drinks the blood from my neck! Gulp! The needle stays, embedded in my neck, rusted barbed wire digging deeper. Click, click, click! The cat's voice echoes again. Not inside me this time, but outside, from the walls, from the floor, from the knives. Fousey'd wake up! I try to move, to pull the strings loose, but the vibrations of the knives make my arms feel like they're made of glass. Shink, shink, shink! The taxidermy figures drag me toward the wall, their glass eyes reflecting only the kitchen's neon glow. Click, click, click! I feel the needle's barbed wire tail jabbing my neck again. Verkel twelche, gulp! The cat drinks the blood. Gulp. The Geiger counter's clicks become one continuous sound. A single thuddy click, 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 click. I try to open my eyes, but the kitchen lights are neon green. The blood is toxic waste yellow. The strings are cutting into my skin. Gulp! The cat's voice fades, replaced by the knife's shink, 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 click, click, click. The taxidermy figures reach my wrists, their fingers closing around my wrists with bruising force. Click, click, click. I feel the needle's barbed wire tail jabbing my neck. Gulp! The cat drinks the blood from my neck. Gulp! The Geiger counter's clicks crowd the space. 10 per second. Click, click. I try to whisper. Why can't I stop? But all that comes out is the thui shink. Shink of the knives. Kugu for shoku for shokov. Gufu for shoshit. Gufut. The cat drinks the blood from my neck. Gufu shoku which. Click, click. The strings dig in. Hard. Black pit eyes stare. The cat's tail jabsy. The needle. Click-o. I feel string dig in. Gulpuv.